Joker, Folie, Deux. This is a non-spoiler review for the sequel. This is directed by Todd Philips, who also directed the smash hit Joker film from 2018, starring the returning Joaquin Phoneix, who won the Oscar. Joaquin Phoneix back as Arthur Fleck in the Todd Philips directed sequel. Joining the cast this time around is superstar sensation, singer, actress Lady Gaga, playing the love interest of Arthur Fleck, aka the Joker, Harley Quinn, or is known as Lee in this movie. So there's a lot that's going on in this film. Now, I said the same thing in my out of the theater reaction, and people would want to know this. How'd you feel about the first one going into this one? I love the first movie. Some people are torn on the first movie. I loved the first movie. I liked that it was a different approach to the Joker character and ultimately leading into what made him the villain that we know, albeit a very different take. The Elseworld, if you will, style of Joker. And so when you leave that movie in the last film, the first film, you're like, whoa, what the hell has happened? Look at the lunacy that is just happening. You still don't really necessarily know what was inside Arthur's mind and what was reality. Well, they answered the question as far as what was real and what wasn't in this movie. I'll tell you that. And then it leads into negating a lot of the stuff from the first movie. But I'll tell you that I think, let's go to the positives. And the positives for me are the style, the direction itself, the artistic choices to film certain things, the shot that we saw with the lipstick, all that stuff, brilliant. The music, brilliant. The performances, great. Both Joaquin Phoenix, Lady Gaga, great chemistry together. I believe her as Harley Quinn. I understand her motives, the different kind of spin on who she is, what she did, all those type of things. A couple of nods to the actual character from what we know of her. And then they base this off of their relationship inside of it. Arthur Fleck on trial for the crimes that he committed, and is he going to get off? Is there going to be a revolt? That is the stuff that starts to happen and the questions that are asked in the movie. Now, the musical side. Why is it a musical? Well, there's something that happens inside of it. The reason of why it is a musical did not bother me at all. And I wouldn't even necessarily say this is a musical. I don't think it is a musical. I think that there's a lot of music in it, and there's a lot of people, and mostly Joaquin Phoenix singing, and Lady Gaga obviously singing. But the reason, it's not just like, I think people were expecting everybody to start breaking out in song, and the guards breaking out in song, and everybody breaking out in the song. And there's the reason why of what he's either imagining, or certain things that are happening, or because of certain things that happen inside of Arkham that lead to the musical choices. That didn't bother me. It was the usage of when they decided to do it. There were times that I was like, okay, it's actually working. I understand why they're doing that for that after the lead up from that scene. And I was on board with it. I said, okay, that makes sense. Then there are other times I was like, we just had a song 5 minutes ago, and this one's going on too long. The choice isn't really working. It's dragging. It's bringing down a scene that right beforehand was working really, really well, because that's the thing with this movie. For the first two acts, there's a lot inside of it. I'm like, okay, I'm on board. I understand what they're trying to do. And there's stuff, the singing and certain things, and we're dragging on a little bit more. And are we saying that Arthur is this? Are we going to start to bring out of him what we saw even more so from his portrayal of the Joker? How much of the Joker is really him? How much of Arthur Fleck is really him? They started to dive into all of that for sure. And then, like I said, there are some moments that were working. I'm like, okay, it's like, I'm here, I'm on board. And then the next scene, I'm like, oh, I'm not on board with this. What's happening? And then I'm back on board, and then I'm not. And by the time you get to the third act, and by the time you get to the end, I'm like, okay, in my head, I'm going, if you guys deliver and there's a satisfying ending, I'm going to wind up going back and saying, okay, there were a couple things here I didn't like, but man, what a punch it hit at the end. It's the exact opposite. The end is an absolute miss for me. I think it does so much damage to the overall character. Not even, everyone says, well, this Joker is different than the Joker that you know. Yes, but the Joker that they set up in the first movie was a progression of things. And it is, as I said, in my opinion, negated completely. And there are certain choices that I'm going to dive more so into the spoiler, because I don't want to give it away to you guys, that a lot of characters make that I'm going, well, that was kind of abrupt. Why'd that character do that? I'm like, if that character's out of nowhere because of that reason, like, Like, I don't buy it. And then something else happens, and you're like, oh, it looks like that's going to happen. And they go, no, we're taking you back to this route. And it felt like studio notes, and it very well might not be. It could very well be a Todd Phillips, Joaquin Phoneix choice of what they wanted to do this time around, but it felt like studio notes. And I said, man, what a bummer, because at the end, when they're supposed to have this kind of big reveal that happens, I was like, this stinks. I was like, I'm not on board for what they're doing here. And even marinating on it more before doing this review, I was like, I really don't like that choice. And I'm going to, like, as I said, I really want to dive into it in the spoilers so I can be, for people who haven't seen the movie yet, so I can then say the reason why I didn't like that choice is because of this and really get into a deep decision why. But in the positive side, I can't, people go, oh, this movie doesn't stink. I can't say this movie stinks because it doesn't stink. There's good actors. There's good, there's good music. There's good direction, there's good scenery. I mean, there's so many. It's frustrating. I think that's the biggest thing with this movie. This movie is frustrating because there's so many elements of it. I'm like, oh my god, have you just strung that together? What you've been telling for the last 15 minutes, string that together, cut that out, and then put that together. And it's like, it's right there. You have so much interesting stuff. And then the argument against that is that even if they put together everything to make that flow just a little bit better leading up to the end, you still have the end. And there are some people who are going to like this ending, but I feel like more people are not going to like the ending. And it is because I just think it's not a satisfying conclusion of what they set up since frame one of the first film. They set up something completely different by the time you get here. And as I said, the music is not everyone. That's what everyone I think is waiting for people to say. Well, the music is what brought it down. It was a musical. They should have never done a musical. It's irrelevant. It wasn't great. Some of the stuff that they did with the musical. There is a musical act that actually works really well in what they were trying to do. There's a few times that they use music in the musical act. They're like, oh, I see exactly what they're going for, and they nailed it. And then there's other times where you're like, oh, that just completely missed the mark, and it's just weighing down this scene completely. There is a scene that takes place, I'll just say, in the mind of someone's character. And when it is happening, I'm like, that is a movie that I think that they could have done that. And they could have done that, at least led to that and gotten to that. Because there's some crazy stuff going on. And people are like, is this more lighthearted? No, it's not. He's in an asylum the whole damn time. And it's still dealing with this guy who's just mentally not there. And you have to go through all that. And Joaquin Phoneix is so damn brilliant that he's just impossible to not want to watch. He's just that good. You're watching him the whole time. And I think that's why I say that I just use the word frustrating when I'm talking about this movie, because I wanted to love this movie. This was one of my most anticipated for the whole year. I loved the first movie. I loved it. And even there's something that happens at the end of the first movie, if you've seen it, they don't even acknowledge. It's not even acknowledged. It's not even part of the plot. And I was like, how is that not part of the plot? That's essential to where the character ultimately, what he becomes. How does that not part of all of this? And it isn't. It's just ignored, essentially. And if you've seen it and it's not ignored, then please correct me. And as I said, we'll dive into it deeper on the spoiler. But I just left this movie going, it's just not working. So overall, I can't even get it to a fresh. I got to go 2.8 out of 5, maybe 2.9, but 2.8 out of 5 for this movie. I wanted this to be a 5. I really wanted it to be 5. I was hoping everybody was wrong. I saw people saying, the ending. I don't want to hear about it. The ending can't be that bad. It's just a bummer. So that's my review of Joker Folie à Deux. As I mentioned, I'm going to do a spoiler review for it. It'll be out this weekend. And then I'm going to do a full spoiler discussion on my live show with Roga. So thanks for joining me here today. If you're brand new to the channel, you've never been here before, please subscribe to it. Help me out. We just hit 158,000, trying to get to 160. So hit that button. Thanks for being here. Show a little. And that's it. So thanks, everybody. Bye.